Who has a question? Yes, sir.
I know you've just passed a multi-billion-dollar budget, but I wanted to ask you about the Holland Tunnel tree.
That's more important.
Well, you know, what can I say?
Of course it is.
It's one of those things. But, just wanted to find out, is this the first time you've had a complaint about this? Why is it not in a logical place over to the A, and what's the agency going to do?
Well, I mean, you can take the.
Well, what I'd like to say is this is the first time it's certainly come to our attention. I don't know what the history here is, but in light of the interest and the light of the proposal for change, we thought it was important to listen and to take action. And what we've done is quite straightforward. We've gone out with a poll. We think we should understand what the broader public's view is. I can tell you that as of this morning, we had 6,700 votes. I don't think it's appropriate to get into too much detail, but I would just say that change is in the air in terms of the current votes that have come in.
So that's a really interesting dynamic of it. So in a large sense, we do things that are big here and small. When that came up, it was brought to the attention of the senior staff for the first time a few days ago, and we took it very seriously because it was something that had of great importance to at least one individual, and had took flight with, I guess, 1,500 other folks who weighed in. That's important stuff. So we took it seriously, roundtabled it, and came up with a solution that we thought best represented a democracy as what we should really do, because I don't think any one person could say what's the best solution. I think the options that are out there are reasonable, and we're looking forward to some winner, so to speak, and we'll make our determination. Yes.
Yes.
Who came up with the design in the first place? Who's responsible for that?
We're going to find that person, and we're going to out that person soon. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how long it's been. It's like Rick just said. This is the first time we had heard about that complaint, obviously in an interesting manner. So, we'll try to find out how it came about. It's kind of odd, as to say the least. And as far as the history, we'll try to drill that down and single that person out the next meeting.
Yeah, so I think I think the big picture here, this has been a matter of routine, as I understand it. Its exact origins may be a bit lost in the sands of time, but we wanted to respond quickly. That's why we've gone to a poll with a few-day period in which the vote is open, and we'll take action after that. Now that the issue is in front of us, we'll take a broader look next year and consider the potential of a design competition, just consider what should be, how we should approach the design next year. But for this year, in order to respond to the concern or the issue that has been raised, we moved to a poll, and we intend to act based on the votes.
And there's a larger issue that's come to light as well about, we were at a town hall meeting about a few weeks ago, and an individual employee said she wanted to talk about lighting up a bridge on celebrating Breast Cancer Month, which had not been done before. There were some bureaucratic obstacles. We moved it, and they were able to do that. Other folks have talked about whether you can have AIDS Awareness Month. You can light up certain structures. So we're going to look at these things on a larger basis, what's appropriate, what's not, and how does, as opposed to what's been just because it's been done that way for years past, we're going to try to create a new dynamic that's open and fresh and reflective of the times. Anybody else? Yes.
There was a lot of talk today about collaboration and between all the sides, board and executive level, and between New York and New Jersey on the board. I was wondering, how would you characterize, Kevin, the level of collaboration with Governor Murphy during your first year? You're nearing the end of his first year in office. How collaborative has that relationship been?
I think it's been a collaboration of sorts across the board, both with Governor Cuomo, Governor Murphy, senior staff on our part, Executive Director Cotton, myself, and all the commissioners. There's no one single personality that's going to dominate this agency. It's about the Port Authority. But I will tell you, if you ask me upon reflection, it's been a terrific relationship working with all of those personalities and principles we just talked about. It's a work in progress.
Governor Murphy included?
Everybody, right across the board.
And then from like a broader perspective, when it comes to boards, maybe this is a question for the two of you, Mr. Linford, as well. Is it possible to make an argument that as fiduciaries, there ought to be some kind of debate and discussion between and among the board members themselves? I haven't attended every board meeting over the last year, but every meeting I have attended, I have not heard the kind of debate, let alone robust debate, that we had under previous leadership?
Paul, I can assure you that we have robust debate at every meeting and sometimes in between. And in unanimity, there's cowardice and uncritical thinking, and we have a lot of thinking and not a lot of unanimity to begin with, but we always come out, we think, with the best answer.
Yeah, and just to take off on that, Paul, so, I mean, there's no line that says Hatfield, McCoy's, there's no line New York, New Jersey, there's no real divide that you've seen in decades or years past. When you go to our meetings, both in executive, both the working meetings before the public sessions, all the commissioners are fully invested in what's going on. Not only that, you have subcommittees that go on, their meetings throughout the month, where there are lots of robust debate that goes on. Beyond that, there are senior staff meetings where there is a lot of roundtabling these discussions. So when you see the public vote, that is after a series of discussions, a series of workshops, a series of, heated sometimes arguments and pros and cons as to whether we should go forward or not. A lot of pointed questions, and not everything you see, when you see that the final analysis of what's being voted on, there are some things that don't make it there because there's not broad support for certain concepts.
So would it be accurate to say that what you're saying is the robust debate goes on in private, and we don't get to see any of that in public?
Well, I'm not saying you won't. As of right now, this board has worked really, really hard in working together. And I think it's really, with some reflection, when you look back in the past, that's been that divide. I think we're a little bit aware of that. But I will tell you, Paul, in all sincerity, there is not this us against them mentality that has existed in years past, starting with the executive director in the chair, which has been present for decades. That's gone. It really is. It's not a mirage. We really actually get along, and Rick and I have a lot of discussions on issues, and he tries to convince me on parts, I convince him on parts, and a lot of times we come down in the middle from where he was and where I am and where the board is.
This is a true Hegelian dialectic, Paul. We have the thesis, we have the antithesis, and then we have the synthesis, and I'm sure you'll be very happy to hear that.
Somebody get a thesaurus to Sal. Somebody else. Question. Yes, sir.
So a new concourse opened up at LaGuardia in Terminal B. Critics have been upset that the project doesn't include more runway space. I think Cuomo talked at the event afterwards about the potential with Rikers. Has the port does the port have a concrete stance on that in utilizing Rikers for additional runway space or finding new runway space elsewhere there?
Well, where we are today is we are in the midst of an $8 billion building of an entire new airport that is focused not just on the air side. Yes, it is true, we are tearing down every single passenger facility other than the Marine Air Terminal, which is landmarked, and rebuilding new from the ground up. In addition, by virtue of moving the entire frontage of the airport closer to the Grand Central, we have been able to expand by at least 50% the taxiway for airplanes surface in terms of the land side, which will mean that in virtually all cases, an aircraft will never again have only one way to exit its gate. So we won't wind up with gate delays based on hearing that another airplane is in the alleyway. So the airside performance in terms of gate delays has been enormously improved. The passenger experience will go from a third world airport in the characterization of Vice President Biden to a 21st century airport facility. At the moment, a new runway is not on the table because the clearest way to have an additional runway would be to use Rikers Island. So there needs to be a plan. It needs to be clear as to when Rikers might be available for a new runway. Right now, there's a debate about whether and on what timetable that would happen, and it's really only when that matures that we would be able to engage in serious potential planning of a new runway.
Thanks for your question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Just one quick question, perhaps for Mr. Cotton, on the bus terminal. You mentioned, was it the end of the first quarter of next year? There is some deadline. What will we learn? Where are we at in the process?
Well, it's not a deadline. It's we're trying to move the process forward. So the FTA within the U.S. Department of Transportation has agreed to be the lead agency in conducting the environmental review. The first stage in the environmental review is the publication of a draft scoping document in terms of what's the nature of the project, what are the issues that are to be addressed in the environmental impact statement. We are well underway in the preparation of that document, and what I was referring to was that there is a target, which I believe we will make, to have that draft scoping document published in the first quarter of 2019, and that will kick off the serious environmental review, environmental impact statement process.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Similarly, for the path extension, where is that design process right now, and is there a deadline or a time frame for when that's going to be completed?
Well, that also is in the early stages of the environmental review. Ultimately, it will lead again to a draft scoping document. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of the right-of-way. That involves discussions with Amtrak, which are a bit complicated since the right-of-way runs along their right-of-way, but we're trying to get to a scoping document as quickly as we can.
Anybody else? Thank you all, appreciate it. Mr. Rick, nice job.